Welcome to our September 2025 State TA Day webinar. It's great to see everyone here today. I hope everyone enjoyed the rainy day yesterday to cool off. Still got some dad jokes and cow puns rolling through the chat. Happy to keep that up all meeting. We can keep it punny. Always down for puns. So we have a few guests today. I'm going to kick it off. Lilith and I are kind of tag teaming this little presentation. I'll take the first part with the help of Gemini image creation. Thanks for making this possible. All right, here we go. So this is just to inform you all. The next 2 months, we're going to have, we really try hard to not change State TA Day. Well, we always combine our December and November one, which we'll talk about. We really try hard to keep this consistently on the third Thursday of every month. But for October, we are going to make a scheduling change. So just so you know, our October meeting will now be 10:30 from 1 to 3. I haven't made the update in the invite yet. That's why it's still showing. So I'm going to make the update right after this presentation in the actual invitation. Just so everyone knows, the October meeting is going to be 10:30 from 1 to 3. We're going to combine our November-December meeting. That's going to be on December 4th from 1 to 3. So that'll be our November and December meeting, since November is during Thanksgiving, December is during the Christmas and winter break. And our September meeting is today. You made it. And Lilith is going to chat real briefly about our quarterly reporting deadlines. And just so you all know, we realize that well, I'll have Lilith give her presentation. That if anyone has questions, they can let us know. But we're going to work with you for this first round.
So I just wanted to give some reminders on quarterly reporting. Remember, we've got our annual report, and within the annual report, we have 3 separate quarters, 3 separate tabs that we're reporting on. And basically just a reminder to adhere to your contract guidelines and make sure that we have the information that we need should we receive an inquiry at the state or federal level, reminding you that those due dates are included in your quality contract, and making sure that we hit these due dates, make sure that we hit the mandatory requirements and avoid any possible audits. And Charlie, you can go to the next slide. So the due dates, I got wrong in the email that went out. So they're fixed here and they should be correct, and we'll resend the email out with those correct dates so you have it all and can bookmark it and have it for later viewing. But the first quarter, that July through September, your quarterly report is due filled out by October 7th. It's 5 business days after the end of that quarter ends. So September ends, and then 5 days after that, not including weekends, is October 7th. We've got the second quarterly report that's October through December, and that is due by January 7th. And then we've got that third quarterly reporting period, which is January through March, and that's due by April 7th. Your quarter 4, just as a friendly reminder, is you're submitting the annual report. Yes, yes, Stacey's dates have changed. They're not changed, they're in your contract, but just really calling them out so that we're all on the same page. We know the dates. And again, if we were to receive any inquiries, then we would have that information available. And your quarter 4 reporting is basically your annual report completely filled out, and then a review of your strategic plan. Could be a 1-pager, could be bullet points, could be anything, basically saying you've been over your strategic plan and any changes, success stories, or activities not accomplished are in there. Brief note on those quarterly reports, they should specify progress made for each of your specific performance measures. Those are in your contract and in your scope of work, basically your activities that you listed out for this funding. Each one of those that you've made progress on, or anything has changed or something has happened, you would be reporting that information in each one of those tabs for those quarters. And then I believe that's it, Charlie.
There's my Gemini, Lisa Frank-inspired. Thank you. So just to let my councils know, like I know normally we go through our quarterly reporting the month after the quarter. So like we would be doing July, August, and September reporting in October. And that is my bad that I pushed that back for some of you. So what I asked for this month is just do your best to fill in what you can for this quarter. And during our October check-ins, we will go through and we'll parse out the information and fill it in more thoroughly. But just if you can have something in there by October 7th, I'd really appreciate it. And apologies again for, not recognizing those deadlines bright and bold. Any other questions there for Lilith or I?
Just want to say thank you to all the councils doing this. Your information is providing us with the information we need to keep advocating for this funding. So it feels like an abbreviated deadline, but it's helping us just fight for your funding and keep supporting you, and you're doing amazing work. So just thank you so much.
Yeah, we're under strict scrutiny, more so than we've ever been. So if we're acting a little bit more intense about deadlines and reporting and things like that, I hope you understand. It's not for anything that you're doing or anything like that. It's just because we want to defend the money that we're spending on these contracts fiercely. Cool. All righty. We have a guest from the We Read program. We have Kelly. Kelly, is it Lavin or Elliot?
Yeah, it's so funny because it's like, oh, my name's Lavin right now. And I was trying to fix that. My married name is Elliot, but Lavin's not my middle name, so they're both my name.
Cool.
All right. Well, thanks, guys. Is it cool to start now, or should I give it a couple minutes?
Yeah, go for it. Yeah.
All right,
do you have a presentation you're sharing?
Yeah. I was going to share screen if that's cool. Just with a flyer, but I'll mostly talk. Hi, everybody. And thank you so much, Charles, for inviting me. My name is Dr. Kelly Elliott. I'm a child psychologist and research assistant professor at the University of Denver. And one of the things that I do in the Baby Steps Lab, which stands for Supporting Teachers, Educators, Parents, and Service Providers, is develop programs to support children and families thrive. So what that means is really so many different things. We have many different programs that we do, but one of the biggest programs that we find a huge need for and are really excited about sharing with you all today is our We Read program, which really talks about language development and early literacy. So We Read is a free psychoeducational infused story time program where we meet once a month at the University of Denver's campus. We give away free books to attendees. We give away other kind of activity, child development, friendly sensory toys, depending on what the event is. It'll usually be geared to what our theme is of that event. We also give away helpful tools and strategies that parents can implement at home with their little to support their literacy and language development. And we are always highlighting our community resources. We realize that we can't do it, nor should we, or do we want to do everything? We really believe in highlighting all of the incredible resources that are out there that are already doing the work, right? That are already on the ground working with families. So every month we will feature folks from different organizations. Super grateful. My latest edition is with Imagination Library Colorado. We're so grateful to have them coming up at one of our next events. Care Option for Kids is going to come as well. There's so many different community organizations such as Rocky Mountain Human Services as well that has been a continuous partner. It comes to almost all of our events, and we'll highlight them. Clifford Still Museum, who does programming like Art Crawl. So we are constantly trying to get the word out about our partners programs as well. and we do community promotion that way. But I wanted to tell you all about our upcoming event, Not So Spooky Story Time, where we're going to really dive into sensory needs and temperamental differences and how all of that interacts not only with early literacy, but with Halloween coming up, which is a super high sensory holiday, if you will. So talking about allergen-friendly options for trick-or-treating, talking about how to really support our littles during a pretty high sensory time. So we'll have child development experts present to talk about that. We'll do story times where kiddos and families could take home books. We'll have many different community resources, having tables that will be giving away free goodies as well. We'll have a trick-or-treating event as well, where we give away more goodies. So lunch will be provided. It's just a really fun time, completely free. Parking is included if you register. We just are really trying to get the word out and really appreciate you all helping us share about this. And I'm going to figure out how I can share my screen so that you can all see the flyer. And I would love to put in the chat our registration link. And if there's a way actually that I can upload this flyer into the chat, that actually might even be best. Let's see. Oh no, see, I can't upload, but let me see if I share.
Is it a PDF? Or...
It is a PDF.
Cool. I can definitely put it in. Oh, we see it now.
Oh, you see it. Perfect. Okay. Let me see if I can...
Make sure to email it to me too, Kelly, and I'll make sure it's in the agenda. We send that out with the follow-up information.
Would love that and so appreciate that. So you can see it up here. Not So Spooky Story Time. All ages are welcome. Lunch is provided. Like I said, parking. Every time people come to our events, they receive free books. So that's another thing we're really passionate about. We're actually also going to have John Morgridge, who is a really big family with the University of Denver. He's a children's book author, and he's going to come and read one of his books. So we'll have hopefully, he'll be there to do some signage for if anyone would like a signed copy of his book, which is so cool. And yeah, just a lot of opportunities like that. And again, we do this every month. So when you register through that link, it automatically joins people to the listserv, and you'll hear about all of our events. In addition to this particular kind of larger event, which is 3 to 4:30, our normal programming is usually 45 minutes. And it focuses on a different theme every month. In September, we highlighted developmental differences and neurodiversity. In August, we talked about a child development theme of transitioning back to preschool. So we talked about kind of transitional objects and how do you prepare not only littles for them going off to their early learning centers in preschool, but also preparing the caregivers, because I think they are sometimes needing that kind of help and support just as much, right? So how do you really help those systems move forward into a big transition? Our other October event is on the 11th. I'm going to share the flyer for that. That's big breaths for big feelings. So we're going to have a mindfulness diffused story time where we'll be talking about emotion regulation and a lot of important topics like that. So let me share that. Let me see if I stop presenting, and then I'm going to share that screen. And I will send Charles both of these flyers, and please share them with your networks. Again, every time people come, food is provided, books are given away for free, and other goodies. So we're just trying to get the word out. It's a pretty cool opportunity for families, and especially families that are high need in low resource communities. We ask that you please share it with those particular families. So that's our other flyer, and that's me talking. Does anyone have any questions? I'm happy to kind of chat. Oh, let me see if that was oh yes, go ahead, Jessica.
Hi, thanks for this. I just want to clarify too that some of your themed events that you have, is that for parents and children, or is it for like providers or librarians or people that work with children?
It's for everyone that works with anyone who cares for children, right? So obviously the story time, it kind of, it's something where we have parents or caregivers, whether it's Nana, Tia's, aunties, uncles, whoever it is, right, coming in with their littles. We also have resource highlights, right? So if it's a speech language therapist that's trying to share about their services, if it's a mental health or behavioral specialist, we will give them opportunities to come, introduce themselves briefly, give away their business cards or any flyers at our events. We really actually encourage a lot of our providers to come as well. And we have time at the end of our events where we hope that there's kind of open discussion for families to come up to them, ask them, kind of meet face to face. I saw in the chat, someone asked if we are on Lantern. We are. Lantern, previously known as Bright by Text. I love Bright by Text Lantern. So we send out text all the time there. So yes, thank you, Jennifer. Do you have a link to the website? Yes, we do. Wonder if yes, absolutely. Oh my gosh, I'm so excited. We actually are going further. We're going to have a We Read event in Summit County in January. So when you log into or register for our event, you'll be on our continuous mailing list and you'll hear about those opportunities. But I'm so glad you bring that up because that is something that we're trying to do more of, is getting out to our rural communities that have less of this. At our previous September event, someone said to me, we have nothing like this in our mountain towns. We need things like this. It's really meant to be early intervention prevention, where we are opening the door for families to know how to connect to resources. That's why I say everyone's welcome, anyone who cares for young children. Wondering, so we don't have, we did do a hybrid option in the past, but we're just doing in person moving forward. I don't know if maybe we'll change that. It's something that we collect data on after every event. If there's a strong desire that we do a virtual option, let us know in our feedback surveys. That's how we get better and grow. I'm always looking for feedback. Yes, they are really scarce outside of Denver. I'm going to put in the website link right now, and let me figure out how to stop sharing for a second. And yeah, and feel welcome to come off while I pull this up so everyone can see our website. There we go. Cool stuff. All right, now let me put it in the chat. Let me know if that works. Yeah. So grateful for the time. Thanks, Charles. And I'll email you those 2 flyers.
Cool. Any other questions for Kelly? We love getting our kids to read. We really appreciate this work and, thinking outside the box and finding great ways to engage our community. So thanks for being here today.
Thanks so much. Take
All
care,
right.
all.
You too. Angela, are you on?
I'm here.
Hello.
Let me get my slides pulled up. Here we go. All right. Well, hi, everybody. Angela Ben-Zachary here from CDEC. It was so great to see many of you last week at the ECLA meeting. Today, we will be talking about something completely different than what we covered on Friday morning, but happy to follow up with anybody if they have any ideas that have also crossed their minds since last week. For now, though, today we are here to check in on higher education and federal student loan eligibility updates. This may or may not be on folks' radar, which is why I wanted to come today and share a little bit about this topic and some mechanisms for folks to give their feedback or questions over to a team of folks that are going to be working on this emerging issue. And you're like, uh-oh, why is there an emerging issue if you haven't heard of this just yet? So let me hop in. We had actually a presentation that we organized with our partners at CDHE and NAEYC at the August ECLC meeting to give us some high-level information on what is happening both at the state level and at the federal level around what is now a concerning issue. But what I will encourage folks to do is to actually go back to the ECLC meeting slide deck, and or if you have time to browse through that meeting recording to get more in-depth background information on this, because I'm only going to give a couple of high-level takeaways from that meeting and what activities and actions we are going to do as a result of this learning. So what did we learn? We had our partners at CDHE come in and share about what they're calling the Colorado minimum value threshold. I am a little less confident relaying all of the information about this threshold, but my understanding is that it's CDHE's mechanism to try to understand more about the earnings value from the different certificate and degree programs that are offered throughout our system of higher education in Colorado. I don't believe there are any policy actions that are required as they're establishing this methodology, but they are learning how to study what the earnings are for folks across different degree programs. And so there are some links in these slides if you're curious about what's happening through this analysis. During that presentation, as they were sharing a little bit about the methodology that they created, they let us know that 86% of the fields of study offered meet this minimum value threshold that they've set. So that's encouraging. And of course, they're trying to figure out what action would potentially be necessary to support the remaining 14%. And so I think this is more about a philosophical conversation than action. And how they're kind of approaching this conversation. So again, I would encourage folks to maybe go back through the recording around the minimum value threshold. But again, this is just trying to establish the value created and earnings opportunities for fields of study. So this part, again, a little less concerning, but just an interesting methodology that is emerging. But I do want to transition us to the concerning things that are happening at the federal level. If this isn't on your radar, I want to spend a little bit more time today on this and let folks know about the actions being taken. If you're not familiar, over the summer, of course, there was a big piece of legislation passed with some pretty major changes to the federal budget, and that included higher education investments. So this is a great slide from NAUIC. Again, this is in the full slide deck from the ECLC presentation. There were several follow-up slides to this. This is the only one I have for today. That this really shares when some of these policy changes are coming and what they entail. So the biggest one is the eligibility for federal student loans, that to qualify for federal student loans moving forward, a candidate in a certificate or degree program must make more than the median income for a high school graduate in that state. In the state of Colorado, that's been defined as just over $43,000 per year, which we know through a lot of our analysis that most of our ECE teachers are not meeting that threshold, and therefore would put them at risk to not being able to supplement their higher education costs with federal student loans. So that's concern number one. There's several other pieces here that our NAEYC friends went more into depth on. There are overarching borrowing limits that are now being imposed that are different than they were previously, as well as limits to how much parents can now borrow on behalf of their student as well. So there's a few additional pieces, but it's that immediate student loan eligibility that is a concern, and it's on our radar. So again, I don't want to go through and do the full presentation for that today, but I wanted to educate you on what some of those next steps are for our information gathering. And I hope you cannot hear the garbage truck that is honking right outside my window. If you can, please come off mute and let me know, and I will close my window. But anyway, so the next steps for this process, our Early Childhood Workforce Development Subcommittee is going to be organizing questions on behalf of the field. So we had this initial presentation at ECLC, which is our leadership commission. That's our state's advisory council. And then this is one of their subcommittees who is designated to work more so on the workforce issues in the state. So we're going to be determining who the best sources of information are for some of the questions that we come up with, and then we'll work across those organizations. Our assumption is that CDHE will be involved, that's Department of Higher Education, the Colorado Community College System, direct questions to institutes of higher education as they're working on identifying which areas of study are part of this. And then we'll bring these questions and data requests back to the ECLC, ensure that we incorporate any of the ECLC's questions on this. and then create an action plan based on any observations or concerns we may still have after we receive this information. And we assume that these types of things would be around, again, what do we need to learn about when these decisions are being made? And how do we address any of these challenges? What are some actions that could be taken to prevent some of these from being challenges? And then again, who are the key partners that we may need to engage with? So some of this may be stuff that can happen at the state level where we may not have authority with our higher education partners. Some of this may need to be taken on by some of the advocacy partners and private partners across the state. So things like, how will students who are in current areas of study receive any kind of support and communications if they're going to lose their student aid in the middle of their course of study? How do we preserve some of our higher education offerings in the state if we anticipate a loss of enrollment? So there's going to be several layers of action that need to happen as a result of some of this. And then at the very bottom of this slide, I also wanted to note that there are a few federal timelines that folks should keep in mind and can possibly engage with in the future. So there's going to be some negotiated rulemaking meetings in December and January that folks of the public are able to attend and provide feedback on the design of some of this regulation. And then the notice for proposed rulemaking, or NPRM, if you're familiar with some of these federal acronyms, will happen after that when they draft these rules. So that's probably late winter or early spring. And again, that is an opportunity for the public to provide comments back to the federal regulators on how this would be implemented. So again, we want everyone in the field to know that these opportunities are coming and what roles they might be able to take or where they might be able to get information on how to get involved. So this part of the conversation is one that I'm happy to engage with folks today and or leave this open-ended for you to send thoughts and questions to me after today's meeting, or if you'd like to come to the ECWD meeting coming up in October, which I will have a slide about in just a second. So here are a few examples of some questions on what we think we want or need to know about this. And again, these are not final. These are up for feedback. And again, we want to grow this list of questions to make sure that we can have a thorough action plan to identify risks about our higher education programming in Colorado. So first and foremost, since this is supposedly going into effect next July, when will our institutes of higher education identify which areas of study aren't going to be eligible for federal student loans once this goes into place? How will the students find out if they're in one of those courses of study? How do we think this will affect our ECE coursework in Colorado if we're going to potentially have fewer enrollees? Can CDHE create a list and publish this on their website? So we have an inventory of areas of study that are affected because we assume this is going to be broader than our early childhood education opportunities in Colorado. I didn't mention this earlier, there are some changes to how Pell Grants are actually going to be implemented in probably a positive direction. So Pell Grants are for low-income students to offset the cost of tuition. And so if you're a low-income student, you can get a lot of student aid on this, and this is not something that has to be repaid. So it is a grant. And so Pell Grants can now actually be offered for certificate programs, and it previously was only for degree programs. So on this positive light, our certificate programs as steps within a degree program, a way that we can augment our areas of study to help people get different student aid than maybe was available to them in the past. So some levels of creativity of how can we prevent this oncoming issue from being bigger than it needs to be. And then maybe the most important data that we can check on before all of this happens is how many students enrolled in ECE areas of study are currently using student loans to finance their certificate or degree program. So there are some things that we can act on now, and then there are some things that we might need to wait until we can get further information on. So again, these are just a few of the pre-written sample questions that we are going to be working on. And we want to collect questions from as many folks as possible to make sure, again, that we have a thorough plan of action. So we want to know, what questions do you have? And we will add these questions to our list and come back at our next kind of meetings here as we gather this information and create this action plan. So my guess is not this actual immediate next meeting, but probably that December hybrid meeting or perhaps the January meeting. I would love to come back to a state TA day. I would be at ECLC and ECWD between now and then as well, talking about this as frequently as is necessary. So I will pause and see if any folks have questions, and I'll check the chat as well. Okay, I'm not seeing any immediate questions or responses, but want to open up the floor to see if folks have the same level of concern, have questions they want to add to the list, or what your immediate reactions are to a few of these things. All right, I'm not seeing anyone rush off of mute. Maybe this is a lot of information or brand new information that you're still wrapping your head around. So I'm going to give you one more second while you're thinking. I will share. Oh, great. Angie.
Do you have any sense of what some of the other areas of certificates or those other programs other than the ECE that might be impacted by this?
I believe there's a few in the healthcare space that I'm immediately aware of. As I mentioned, I think the similar calculations that were happening for the Colorado minimum value threshold, that 14% of folks that weren't meeting that defined threshold would also probably be in the same category for this federal analysis. So I can reach back out to CDHE and see if that's if those areas of study are some that we can team up with to create some parallel solutions and brainstorming on how we might bring these issues to the forefront of our partners' conversations. For me, this is also one that will also complement some of the work we're doing on the compensation side to continue to elevate, like, this field needs more funding. Compensation is a significant issue and families can't pay more, right? So there's several, I think, things that we can do both immediately related to this issue and then also use it as an opportunity to elevate other issues within our field. So that's, I'm sorry, just a little bit of rambling there, but I don't have an immediate list, but we can ask for that list from CDHE and see what kind of work is being done in those sister areas.
That's great. And thank you so much for reading my mind and taking it to the next level with the next question I was going to ask. So thank you.
Absolutely.
This is Claudia. I apologize. I'm driving. I guess my question is how can federal use state? I mean, the federal minimum wage is like $7.25 an hour, right? So how can federal funding be used and use Colorado instead of using the federal guidelines? I guess I'm just kind of confused by that.
If I can maybe repeat this back, how are they defining that minimum threshold, even if the minimum wage is not meeting that threshold?
Right. Well, I mean, we're talking about federal aid. We're not talking about state aid. We're talking about federal aid. And the federal, and correct me if I'm wrong, but isn't it the federal minimum wage $7.25 or something like that?
As far as I know, yes.
Yeah. So I'm just wondering how they're putting that threshold on Colorado because, you know, our minimum wage is $15 an hour. And, you know, we're about double what the federal minimum wage is. So I'm just wondering how they're using that threshold by states instead of following the federal mandates, that, you know, they're federal $7.25 an hour and penalizing Colorado because we've actually raised our rates for people, you know, rate of pay.
Yeah, I think that's a better commentary on the issues with our current minimum wage thresholds nationally, and then how they can justify using that high school median wage for the eligibility for this loan program. And that's one that is a little bit outside of my wheelhouse, but I completely agree with you. And I think these are some areas that potentially could be spoken about with federal partners, and that concern can be noted in that notice for proposed rulemaking, that these are problematic areas and they need to be addressed with different areas of policy. So I think that's a question I can collect and see if there's any insight that our higher education partners could give from an advocacy perspective that is outside of what state's allowed to do.
Yeah,
But
I
we'll
think it's definitely something to think about because,
Yeah.
I mean, if you're talking about a state that has $7.25 an hour and, you know, you've got your entry level people, a high school person's making $7.25 an hour, you know, they're going to get federal aid a little easier than what it's going to be required for in Colorado because we're at almost $15 an hour. So I think that's definitely something that needs to be looked into. And, you know, if you're going to set a mandate across the United States, federally, I think it needs to be done all the same. And if they go back to $7.25 an hour, then, you know, we're not going to have any problem meeting that. We're going to be over.
Yeah, I appreciate that, Claudia. I think that's certainly something that can be shared with federal partners and legislators. And again, an area that the state isn't necessarily able to participate as much in. But these are certainly questions that could be proposed in some of those federal processes as how they've determined that threshold. It does vary state to state. And the fact is that they're taking a statewide median look actually also penalizes areas that were, if that's a median, we know that there's obviously in that state folks that fall below that threshold. And then there's folks that fall above, right? That's how you define a median. And so you're already also penalizing areas in some of those most likely rural areas or smaller urban areas that maybe weren't at that threshold to begin with. So it is a problematic measure and that is something I can speak a little bit to. And I think those are some areas that we would love to, again, have some folks take that up to the federal levels where you're able to. And again, share that is something that could be significantly concerning for this field. Okay, I think I am well over time, so let me just go one more slide and make sure this shows up in the recording. And then again, just let folks know my email address is here. I would love to invite you over to the ECWD meeting on October let me go back, 7th. I didn't want to misquote the date. If you're able to, or if you'd like to submit some things in writing to my email, please send those my way. Over the next couple of months, we'll be digging into this deeper. And then, of course, we can share again those dates for any of the federal activity that is possible for comments, as this is, again, a pretty significant emerging issue. And we want to make sure that folks are educated and aware of how this might affect training opportunities in your community. Thanks for the time today.
Thank you, Angela. Cool. Lots of exciting changes. Elaine, speaking of exciting changes, Elaine is going to show you all something very cool that I think you will all love.
Yes. Hello, everyone. I am excited to share with everyone today our new early childhood workforce data dashboard. So I'm really excited about this. I would say this contains a lot of the data that I get requested most often from the PDIS. So I'm really excited to share it with you all and hope it kind of lets you feel like you've got data available on your own areas. So I got a couple of slides to kind of go through high level, and then we'll skip to the dashboard and walk through it. So high level, this is the third version of this dashboard. So there was a 2019 workforce dashboard, a 2021 workforce dashboard, and a 2024 workforce dashboard. The main difference between the previous version and the current version is that there is a single source of data on professionals. So the old dashboard used a combination of PDIS data, Department of Labor data, and lots of things to kind of pinpoint who our professionals were. And now we can get all of the data from the PDIS, which is very exciting. This was built with the Colorado Evaluation and Action Lab and Resultant, who were the Tableau software gurus. So what information does this dashboard hold? It has high-level information on early childhood professionals. So this includes the child to professional ratio and the number of professionals within each job role. Some demographic information. So the age of the professionals compared to Colorado State demographics, as well as broken out by job role, and then professionals' race and ethnicity compared to Colorado State demographics and broken out by job role. Credential data. So this is the early childhood professional credential, the percent of the workforce that hold an ECPC, and then a breakout of what ECPC levels are held by professionals in different job roles. And then some exciting recruitment data. So the overall recruitment rate, and then recruitment rate broken out by job role, and then retention data. So overall retention rate, and then retention rate broken out by professionals who stayed at the same program, people who stayed in early childhood but went to a new program, and people who left the field in Colorado, also broken out by job role. And then all of these data points here can be broken out by geography. So you can see the overall data point for the state of Colorado, and then you can also see all of these data points for every county, for every early childhood council, and for every local coordinating organization. One note here is that in order to protect the privacy of our professionals, we did use data suppression for any metric that has less than 16 professionals in that metric. You won't see data, you'll see N is less than 16, and that's it. We know that some of these regions are small and don't have a high number of professionals, and so this actually kind of blocks you guys from seeing a lot of your data. So we have a new public facing data email address right here. And so you can always reach out to that email address for further requests. These slides are going to be shared. And so this link right here is a link to the dashboard, but I already have it open. So I'm going to try to go through this fairly quickly and then have time for questions. So this home tab at the top, or these tabs across the top, are how you navigate to the different data sources. So this home tab just has some high level information as well as a link to the previous dashboard. And then to get into the data, so this ECE professionals tab shows the overall number of professionals in the state of Colorado. And then over here on the left-hand side, we have some filters. So this dashboard contains data from the 2022-23 school year and 23-24 school year. So it will default to the 23-24 data, but if you do want to see data for the previous year, you can select it in this time frame filter. And then if you want to change how the geography filters are, you can go here. So because this view has a map, if you select a different geographical breakdown, the map will update. So before it was showing counties, now it's showing councils. And then just below this is the statewide average of child to early childhood professional. And now to get into it. So the statewide child to professional ratio is about 14. And so this map is a heat map that shows ECCs that have a higher child to professional ratio will be in orange, and councils that have a lower child to professional ratio will be in blue. One note is that this is all children. So from the state demographer's office, it does not necessarily represent children that need care. A lot of families don't want to send their child to childcare or, you know, have their own preferences. So that's just one note here, is that this is based on all children and is not necessarily a true exact reflection of the need for spaces, because we can't get that data. So that's what's over here on the left-hand side. And then on the right-hand side, you see this data broken out by job role. I do apologize that some of the font is small. Once you open it on your own computers, hopefully you'll be able to read it a little bit better. But we've got directors, lead teachers for infants and toddlers, lead teachers for preschool aged kids, assistant infant and toddler teachers, assistant teachers for preschool age, and then family child care home providers. And then one thing that is really exciting about this dashboard is interactive. So if you're curious about what the distribution of lead teachers across the state is, you can click this bar on the right-hand side and the map will update on the left-hand side to just show infant and toddler lead teacher child to professional ratios. And then if you click outside of that bar, it will reset. There's a lot going on underneath, so it takes a second to reset. But this also works the other direction. So if you want to see this professional, how many professionals broken out by council or whatever region you have selected, you just click on that area on the map, and then these bars will update to show how many professionals there are in the council that you've selected. Our next tab gets into some of this demographic data. So again, starting on the left-hand side, we've got the time frame filter, and then this one is set up a little bit differently. So this first, yes, I will put this in the chat, and then I will go through and read all of the questions at the end, because I see there's a few things coming up. So this first geographic filter is you select what breakdown you want. So do you want to see data for the full state, by county, by ECC, or by LCO? And then a new, and then this will populate based on what you selected up here. And you can select whatever council or region you want to see the data for, and it will update. On the left-hand side, we have the percent of early childhood professionals within these different age buckets in blue. So 10% of early childhood professionals within Denver's Early Childhood Council are between 16 and 24 years old. And then this gray bar behind shows the percent of workforce age people in that same age bucket. So you can see professionals compared to the overall Colorado population. Over here on the right-hand side, we have this again broken out by job role. So this first column is directors, and then these, the different shades of blue correlate with the different age range buckets. So you can see this youngest age range of 16 to 24, there's not many directors that are that age. And most of the folks in that age population fall within the assistant teacher job role. So play around with it, lots to see here. Race ethnicity is set up in a similar way. So again, there's a time frame and then the geographic filters. The left-hand side shows the percent of professionals that fall into different racial and ethnic categories compared to the overall workforce population in the state of Colorado. And then over here on the right-hand side, we have this broken out by job role as well. All right, credentials. This is, I would say, the most common request that I get from folks. So I'm really excited to be able to share this with you. So again, we've got the time frame and the geography filter. Right now it's set up to show different early childhood councils. Below it, statewide, 54% of all early childhood professionals had an active ECPC in the 23-24 school year. And then this is split up again. So councils that had a higher rate of ECPCs are in blue, lower rate is in red. It's not necessarily a good or a bad thing. We just kind of wanted to have a comparison point. And then over here on the right-hand side is the ECPC level broken out by job role. So these gray bars are the percent of professionals within a given job role that do not hold an ECPC. And then the blue shades are the different levels of ECPC for professionals that do hold them within each job role. Similarly to our first tab, if you select something over here, it will update the map and vice versa. Actually, I'm not sure if it's vice versa now that I say that. But if you select a map area, then the ECPC levels will update. So you'll be able to see for your council, what is the ECPC level breakdown for professionals in different roles. All right, our last two tabs show data across the school years. So this is the recruitment rate between the 2022-23 school year and 23-24 school year. Because of that, these two tabs do not have a time frame filter because it's the data between the 2 years. Set up the same way where we've got the map over here on the left-hand side and then the job role breakdown on this side. The percentage here is the percentage of new professionals in these job roles or in the workforce in these regions. This one is set up where if you click over on the left-hand side, it will show you just the data for that geographical area. This is one where you can see the data are suppressed because it's a low number. Although, yeah. Retention data. All right. Sorry, there's a lot going on in this dashboard, so sometimes it takes a second to update. But retention data, again, this is professionals who stayed in early childhood between the 22-23 and 23-24 school year. Over here on the left-hand side, it's broken out by job role, with dark blue being professionals that stayed at the same provider, light blue being professionals that stayed in early childhood but moved to a new program, and gray being professionals who left the field in Colorado. Again, you can click around to different areas and have the data update on both sides. But I'm going to stop talking at you now and I'll start reading the questions. And if anyone has another question, just raise your hand. Okay, Lisa, I see your question. When will this be updated again? That is a great question. So one of the reasons we are excited that this is a single data source now is that we should be able to update it in-house without needing to kind of rely on some external partners. That being said, we don't yet have the infrastructure in place to update it. So this is kind of one of the projects on our radar to put a process in place so that we can update this on an annual basis. I will say I've pulled the data for the next round. So the data exists, we just have to clean it and get it in here, which is a pretty big lift. So I don't have a date, but it's definitely on our radar to figure it out. And hopefully we'll have this as a regular process that we update on a somewhat annual basis. Will compensation data ever be included? That is another great question. I have started a list of things that we could potentially include in here. Another suggestion I got was the languages spoken by professionals. Compensation data is a little bit harder because we don't have it for most professionals. We did start our income and benefits survey in the PDIS last year. We had about 1,000 professionals complete it last year, which is a great starting point. But once you get into these breakdowns, like by job role and by county, we don't really have enough data to reliably report out this on the state of compensation within these breakdowns. So we're working to kind of get better data there. But at this point, I think that's more of a long-term goal. Okay, can you remind me how this data was collected? I know in PDIS, but what is the percent that would include every professional status updates? So this data is based on employment data that professionals add to their PDIS profiles. So it's self-report kind of at its foundation. The professional goes in and they say, this is where I work, this is the job role that I hold, and these are the children that I serve, or the ages of the children that I serve. The director or program leadership for that program will then see that they have a new staff member to verify. They go in and they look at all of the information that the staff put in and can make any changes, or they say, yes, this is correct. We then pull all of that data and we have our own kind of verification and cleanup protocols that we follow to make sure that we're feeling more confident in this data. And then that is what is fed into this dashboard. Obviously, there are only 6 job roles here, and we know professionals serve many, many other roles than just these 6 job roles. And so part of it is, what data are available that we could actually report at these breakdowns. And then what data do we feel confident in? Let me see. All licensed programs are reflected in this dashboard. Yes, in theory. So a few years ago, licensing rule was updated so that all professionals in licensed programs need to hold a PDIS account. The rule does not require that professionals put their employment data into their PDIS account. So our partners at the Colorado Lab have done some really cool data validation work, looking at data from the PDIS and data from the Department of Labor and other sources to see, how accurate the data in the PDIS is, and kind of landed at any point in time, the data in the PDIS are an accurate reflection of the workforce at large, but it's not a live system. Professionals don't go in and update their PDIS account the moment they get a new job or the moment they leave a program. So the day-to-day changes in PDIS data are not an accurate reflection of the day-to-day changes in the workforce. But as a point in time, with the expected data error that comes with any large data set, it is reflective of the workforce as a whole. That being said, there are likely programs where people are not engaging in the PDIS very much and people are not adding their employment data. So there are likely some programs that are missed, but kind of at a macro level, it represents the workforce. All right. Does this data include professionals who are not working at a licensed program, like council staff, FRC staff, LCO staff? Great question. No, it does not. At this point, it is just folks that sit in these 6 job roles. I think that is something that we would be interested in having insight into in the future. At this point, the licensed professionals are the only verified job roles that we have in the PDIS. And so we're just not, the data aren't as strong for some of these professionals outside of licensed care. We would like to get to a place where it is now. Yeah, go ahead, Lisa.
I have two questions. One is just because I'm looking at the recruitment that we are going to be able to have our FFN providers within the PDIS system. So futuristically, we might be able to see what that might look like across the state and or in our communities.
Yes. And I will say, there's lots of people in the world that support early childhood. FFN providers are one of those big populations that we're really working to engage with more. And we're having some success. So it wouldn't be, I don't know that it would be something that we add to the next iteration of the dashboard, but it is something that we're getting better data on and we'll have better insights. And so I could definitely see it included in the future.
Yeah,
Okay,
and I
and
have
then,
one,
oh, sorry.
1 second
Go ahead.
question, and maybe it's on one of the other tabs, but I guess what I'm curious about is that in the past, we saw a big difference between program type and turnover. And so I'm curious about that here, and whether within the system you can tell by program type.
Yeah, that's a great question. So this also came up in our kind of internal discussions, and I'm thinking we'd really benefit. So this dashboard is all at the professional level or like individual person level. It would be really great to show to have a dashboard that shows data breakdowns at the program level. So for this dashboard, we don't have any program level data included, with the exception of if someone is a family child care home provider. That's really the only program level breakdown that we have. So I think that's a great question. It is something that
A little more
we
complicated.
technically have. Yeah, exactly.
All right, thank you.
Of course. H Hawk, who sent this question in the chat that the data is not looking correct to you. That might be the case. It shouldn't be. We had some fairly thorough review and test of it, but as you can tell, there's hundreds of different ways to break down the data in this dashboard. So please, could you send me an email? Yes, that's a really great point, Angela. Family childcare homes, this is not the number of licenses of family childcare homes. This is the number of professionals that are working in family childcare homes. So it could also include assistants. Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, we counted those too because we collect data
Okay.
every year, but it would still be twice as many people that could possibly be working in a system in a community that only has 5 licensed homes. So just trying to figure out what that looks like.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that. I just put my email in the chat. Could you send me an email with what you're seeing that looks wrong? And I will connect back with our data partners to look at it and see what we can figure out. Thank you. And same goes for anyone else. If you are seeing things that look wrong, send it my way and we will figure it out. Go ahead, Lisa.
You know, that kind of brings me to the issue of the challenge that we have with historically, if people get an early childhood physician, or let's say they open a license, but they leave, this system isn't necessarily able to tell us that unless someone else says something.
Yeah, that is definitely big on our radar. I will say one of my projects for the past year was to come up with what I have been calling an active user definition. We know a lot of folks, once they leave early childhood, they just don't touch their PDIS account, which is totally fair. But that means they could still be showing up as active professionals. We also know a lot of folks create multiple PDIS accounts. And so we have a kind of a new data quality process where we are excluding any folks from data pools that haven't logged into their PDIS account in the past 3 years. Because you have to stay up with your annual training. Some of our credentials and qualifications have a 3-year expiration period. And so that way we feel fairly confident that if someone has not logged into the PDIS in 3 years, they're not an active member of our workforce. And so we're able to get closer to the source of truth. But that is definitely something that's on our mind. Any other questions? All right. Thank you, everybody. Exciting to share with you today. And I will actually see you all in a few minutes.
Thank you so much, Elaine. What an awesome tool to have. I know I get these questions a lot. And yeah, this is just the start. So feedback, I'm assuming, is appreciated. And yeah, just reach out if you see anything, glaringly that you think is incorrect. All right. I believe we're down to our last presentation. We're running a little bit late, but we also have a lot of time. So apologies, Michelle. You out there?
Yep, I'm here.
Awesome. Hello.
Great. Well, thank you all. My name is Michelle Stolpervensky. I'm the Early Childhood Workforce Compensation Administrator at the department. And I'm here today to talk to you about the Care Worker Tax Credit. So let me just, in the chat, I will put both the website that has more information and my email address, and then I'll show some more resources as we go through. And our goal today, I'd spoken at TA Day back in January to give an overview. I want to just make sure that people here understand kind of the overview of the tax credit, understand some of the resources that we have available, and then we're going to do a quick walkthrough of the attestation in PDIS so that you are familiar of what that looks like, and then happy to answer questions and take ideas about outreach. Okay, so let's start with what is the Care Worker Tax Credit. This is a $1,200 refundable state income tax credit. And refundable means that even if you don't owe any money in taxes, you can still get money back when you file your Colorado state income taxes. Really importantly, this is distinct from the Early Childhood Educator Tax Credit, which has been in operation for the past several years. This is an additional credit. So and I have a slide on this later, but for 2025, if somebody is eligible for both credits, meets the qualifications for both of them, they can claim both credits. So for this year only, for the 2025 tax year only, those professionals could be eligible for up to $2,900 between those two credits. This Care Worker Tax Credit is for qualifying child care workers, which includes family, friend, and neighbor providers, which is kind of for the first time very unique, as well as kind of separate from CDEC's purview, some direct long-term care workers as well. It starts in the 2025 tax year. So applies this tax year. People will file for it when they file their taxes in spring of 2026, and goes through the 2028 tax year. And then it was created by House Bill 2513-12 several years ago. So who is eligible for the Care Worker Tax Credit? The really critical element of this is that you have to have provided childcare for at least 720 hours during the tax year, so during 2025. That can be as either an operator or employee of a licensed early childhood education program or licensed family child care home, or as a family, friend, and neighbor child care worker who's providing care for children who are age 5 and under who are not your own. So that is, again, kind of a new population in terms of being eligible for a tax credit. And then there is an income limit, which is adjusted gross income needs to be less than $75,000 a year if you're filing as a single filer, $100,000 a year if you're filing as a joint filer. So I just want to point out, in terms of thinking about outreach, that this is kind of two very different populations. Those that are in licensed programs is one that, as we just discussed, mostly we already have in PDIS. We know who they are. And so what it is then is just making sure that people know about the credit. They know that they have to fill out this attestation that I'll talk about in a second, and file for it when they file their state taxes. So that's the one population. And then we have the family, friend, and neighbor population, which is one that we traditionally as a state haven't had the direct relationship with, where we've been building that. But they are all, a population that may not yet be enrolled, registered in PDIS. They may not even think of themselves as an FFN provider. So there is a lot of outreach and education we need to do with this population to make sure that they are aware of this tax credit and claiming it if they're eligible. And we have already started and will continue to do some partnerships, both with CDC's FFN Advisory Council and with some of the community partners like the Colorado Statewide Parent Coalition, Mile High United Way, My Lantern, and a number of you I know on this call who are doing a lot of really great work with our FFN providers. So that's who's eligible. And then just briefly, I'm going to dive into these a little bit more in detail, but the steps to receive the tax credit is that you have to complete the care worker tax credit attestation in PDIS. And again, we'll walk through that, and then file your state income taxes in the spring. So before I go into a little bit more detail, I just want to see if there are any questions right now about the credit, or who's eligible, anything outstanding there. We do have a frequently asked questions document that goes through a lot of those questions, available on that website that I linked to, that we're continually updating. But happy to answer any questions at this point. I don't see any in the chat, but if you have any, yeah, go ahead, Carly.
Do you have a timeline? Like a professional would have to have their ECPC before November or something?
Yeah, so for this tax credit, you are not required to have your ECPC. The early childhood educator tax credit, which again, I do have a slide later on, but the early childhood educator tax credit that you're familiar with for the past few years is the one that requires an ECPC. For that, the deadline, I think let me check on that. Elaine might be able to answer. I think it's December 15th is when they need to submit that. Oh, December 1st. Thank you. December 1st for the ECPC for being able to qualify for the early childhood educator tax credit. For this care worker tax credit, it is not a requirement that you have your ECPC.
So the only timeline that we're looking at is the hours worked in a licensed care, or any care, excuse me.
Yeah, so they do have to complete the attestation. And let me just go to this next slide. So that they have to complete this care worker tax credit attestation in PDIS. We are asking for people to submit that by the end of the year, by December 31st, 2025. That means that information can be included in that initial transfer of information we give to the Department of Revenue, the State Department of Revenue, of who's eligible. So it means that there won't be any delays in people getting their credit. We anticipate, though, that there may be some people that aren't realizing they need to have, that they didn't know they needed to fill out this attestation until they start to file their taxes. So we still will be allowing people to submit that attestation after December 31st, early next year, but really are trying to encourage people professionals when possible to submit that attestation by the end of the year.
That's helpful. Thank you, Michelle.
Great. So then let me just dive in a little bit more on this attestation. So again, in terms of steps, one step is that you need to create a PDIS account if you don't have one. So that's particularly relevant for FFN providers or other informal care providers who may not be in PDIS already. So we have some resources that are already available, and we can share out the kind of walk through how to do that for people who don't have a PDIS account. Or if you already have a PDIS account, it's just logging in and then complete an attestation that you have provided care for at least 720 hours in the tax year. And the attestation is kind of a form or an application that Elaine can walk us through. And again, ideally, this should be submitted by December 31st of this year. And then we do have as well an amazing guide on just walking through the steps of PDIS that I've linked here. And so there's that step, and then people just have to file their taxes. So why don't we, if you're able to, I'm gonna stop sharing and then hand it back over to Elaine, who's amazing, to just walk you through the attestations, just so you're able to answer questions that may come up in your networks, and can see that we really have tried to make it as streamlined and easy to navigate as we can, while meeting the requirements under the statute for eligibility.
Thank you guys for coordinating this on the spot. I think this is going to be super helpful.
Yes. Hello again, everyone. And I did not introduce myself. I am the PDIS manager at the Department of Early Childhood. So that's why I'm plugging into different places here. So this is your home screen when you log into the PDIS. Quick plug for folks who are interested in compensation data. This income and benefits survey is how we get that data, and it is open through the end of September. So there's a few more days to encourage folks to complete and send us this data. And there is an incentive. So we will be randomly selecting 50 people who complete the survey to get a $100 gift card. That is not what I'm supposed to be talking about right now, though. So to complete the care worker tax credit attestation, log into the PDIS. In your My Account menu, go to Profile Settings, and then scroll all the way to the bottom. And we'll see the care worker tax credit attestation section. We've got some of this high-level information that Michelle just shared, as well as a link to more information. But to complete the attestation, you start by clicking this register button, and a window will pop up. You start by selecting the tax year that you want to apply for this attestation for. Again, right now, it's only available for 2025, so that's the only option. The next option is to select whether you're registering for this tax credit as an employee or operator of a licensed early childhood education program, including family childcare homes, or if you are registering as a non-licensed family friend or neighbor childcare worker, and this includes the CCAP qualified exempt providers. So based on what you select here, more fields will pop up. So for licensed professionals, because there are some requirements based on different programs. For instance, summer camps are licensed programs in the PDIS. Summer camp staff are not eligible for this tax credit. So you have to enter in your employment information as part of our verification. There are two ways to do it. First, if you already have or if the person already has verified employment in the PDIS, it'll pop up right here, and you just click it and the rest of the data will fill in. If they don't, or they don't want to use that employment, then you can just add, you kind of type in the program, all of the licensed programs will pop up. You say when you started, and then if you had an end date, you can add that in. If someone is still employed at the program, the end date is not required. And then they select full-time, part-time, or seasonal. The final step is checking this attestation box. And so this is kind of that legal agreement that you do meet all of the requirements for this tax credit. Once you click this, you can click save, and that is how you do it. I'm not going to do this because I don't want to create a false tax record right now, but I will show you the other way to set this up. So for folks who are non-licensed care providers, you just select this second option at the top, and the data that shows up will be a little bit different. So first you select if you are a family friend or neighbor provider or a CCAP qualified exempt provider. Then you select which age groups you work for. And we know it's not always clear what the difference is. So these info bubbles kind of say what is considered an infant age, what is considered toddler, and what is considered preschool. So this is a select all. Again, you can select full-time, part-time, or seasonal. And then there's this attestation again, the attestation is slightly different for licensed professionals versus the informal care providers because there's different eligibility criteria. So again, folks really need to make sure they're reading this and that it is all 100% accurate. If it is not accurate, then unfortunately that person is not eligible for the tax credit. But again, select this once all of the fields are selected, click save. And it will, again, I'm not going to do it right now, but a table will show up where below where the register button is that has that tax credit attestation data, including what is called an attestation ID, which is a short kind of randomly generated number that we will be sending to the Department of Revenue. So when folks file their taxes, they'll need to include that attestation ID number from the PDIS on their tax filings. And that is one of the main ways that the Department of Revenue will be able to confirm that folks should be receiving the credit. I am going to hand it back over to Michelle now. But I'll keep an eye out, see if there's any questions in the chat.
Great. Thank you, Elaine, for that. Sorry, I just put my camera off there. Great. So let me share again here, just to finish up this slideshow that we have. So that's completing the attestation. Pretty straightforward. I did in the chat put also the written how-to guide, which is really helpful if you need to share it with anyone. And then the second step is to file taxes. Anybody who needs help with filing taxes, Get Ahead Colorado, which also has Hacia Adelante page in Spanish, can help folks in navigating filing taxes and finding in-person tax help. The CDC isn't able to help anybody with tax advice, so we will be directing people there if they need tax advice. And as Elaine just mentioned, we anticipate there will be a kind of very simple form on the in your state income taxes that you would just have to enter that attestation ID, which you can always find in PDIS. And then that will be how you claim the credit. So, but we'll update with more information once we know the particular tax form. That is that. And so then I did have this slide on what we talked about earlier, that this is distinct from the early childhood educator tax credit, which is also in place for 2025. So I have here just the details of that, which is in our PDIS newsletter. And just to clarify again that the deadline for that credit, which you are required to have a early childhood professional credential for submitting an application for an ECPC, if you don't have one, is December 1st of 2025. So for this year, this is a really going to be a substantial opportunity for early childhood professionals to get credits between the two of them that could be up to $2,900. And then just wanted to share some of the resources we have. So they are that link on the top, which I shared in the chat as well, is our website that we're going to be our webpage on this will continue to keep updated. On there are all of these resources, but there's an overview document, a frequently asked question document, which has like a lot of the nitty-gritty questions of eligibility, an hours tracking template, which is especially for our FFN providers. It is not required that be uploaded, but keeping track of the number of hours you provide care is important to have that documentation on hand. And then working on a shared folder of outreach resources and materials. So we have some great outreach flyers that are coming very soon. That one that's specific for FFN, one that's more targeted at our licensed educators in our licensed settings. So we will make sure to share those out with all of the councils. We'll send out an email once we have all of those, so that you can hopefully be sharing this information out broadly with your networks. So let me see. I'm going to pause there and see if there are other questions or thoughts, or I encourage you to also reach out to me by email if you have ideas of other outreach strategies, particularly in reaching maybe the FFN population that we don't already kind of know about. But happy to take any ideas or questions right now as well. Okay, great. Well, then I have just one more slide that I put here, which is not really related, but just since I have you all, I just wanted to flag it's related because it's also about compensation and benefits, but we have a webinar coming up for focus on retirement savings for family child care providers that's coming up October 14th. 2015. So that information was in the PDIS newsletter, but I just wanted to make sure all of you know about that as well. And I will put all these chats in the agenda for people to be able to access them as they're moving forward. And I'll turn it back over to you, Charlie.
Thank you so much, Michelle. Cool. Yeah, I know this time of year we start getting flooded with questions. Hopefully we can get on top of it, ahead of it this year. And it sounds like we have a unique opportunity this year to get 2 tax credits for our providers, which is, probably won't be the norm going forward. So thanks for all the work you've done to get this information out there and to get our providers a little bit of relief for this tax season. So thanks again. And yeah, Michelle, if you don't mind sending me that PowerPoint when you get a chance, I'll add it to the agenda. I believe you were our final presentation. We went a little bit over, but not over our actual time. I'm so happy that we had the extra time to talk through this and talk through the new dashboard and answer any questions. While we have everyone here, are there any other questions? I know we had some really important information that was shared today, so just making sure. You can always reach out to your QRIS coordinators. I'm trying to think if there's any other big updates or anything we can give. So just a reminder, next month we'll be meeting on October 30th. So I have updated that invite. I also updated our November invite to be December 4th. I'm going to go ahead and cancel our December meeting. So we'll have one meeting at the end of October and then one last 2025 meeting before the new year, which is weird to start talking about. Cool. Anything else for the greater good? Well, we appreciate you all so much. Great to see everybody. Have a great rest of your day, a wonderful weekend. Enjoy the sunshine while we got it. Hopefully see some leaves changing. Hopefully they didn't all fall off with the rain. Alrighty, cool. We will be sending out the agenda and the recording hopefully by early next week. So
Thanks, Charlie.
thanks, Diana. Thanks, everybody. Have a great day.